Hola, ¿cómo está? Oh, whoops, sorry, wrong class. It's Mrs. Frazier here. We're talking today about one-step equations with radicals. So equations that have things to do with squaring and square rooting. So what we have here, you can see, are some rules for solving one-step equations. Identify the variable and the operation. So you always want to make sure that you're identifying where the variable is, the side that has the variable. So for example, I would say on the first equation, the variable is on the left. The operation is a minus 14. We're going to perform the inverse operation on both sides. So this is why we would add 14 to both sides. We'd get f equals 43. No big deal. The inverse of x squared is the square root of x. The inverse of x cubed is the cube root of x. So what we need to do is observe what is happening to the equation as it's printed on the page. So the first one says solve x squared equals 25. So the variable is already sort of isolated. It is on the left side. It doesn't have anything else happening to it except the squaring. So we're going to perform the inverse of squaring to both sides. So what I've done is said, okay, I'm going to square root the left side and I'm going to square root the right side. That's the inverse operation, doing it to both sides, and I got x equals plus or minus 5. Now remember, this has two solutions because 5 times 5 would give me 25, but negative 5 times negative 5 will also give me 25. And that happens when you square root both sides. The next one says solve x cubed equals 729. So x cubed, that's the side with the variable. It's already isolated. There's no adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing happening on that side. Perform the inverse of cubing, which is taking the cube root. So you'll notice that I have cube rooted the left side and I have cube rooted the right side. Cube root of 729 is 9. Now this only has one answer because cube rooting is sign specific. The 729 was positive, so the 9 has to be positive, right? 9 times 9 times 9 is the only way to get 729. Rules for solving radical equations. The inverse of the square root of x is x squared. So when you look at this problem and you see that the problem has the square root symbol in it, you're going to need to use squaring on both sides as the inverse. So if the square root of x equals 4, I'm going to square the left side and I'm going to square the right side. The square root of x squared, those are inverses, so you just have x on the left. 4 to the second power, meaning 4 times 4, that's what gives you the 16 and just the one answer. You can always check your answer too by saying, oh, I think x is 16. If I go back to the original, does the square root of 16 equal 4? Sure does. All right. We also have an equation that has cube root in it. So if you notice that the cube root of x is printed on the paper, I'm going to do the inverse of that, which is cubing both sides. So this side got cubed and this side got cubed, and that's where we get x equals 125, also just the one solution. You can still go back and check your answer as well. Is the cube root of 125 5? Sure is. Solve the following equations. Show your work algebraically and check your answer. So again, not looking just for a correct answer, looking for that step. What are you doing to both sides? So the side with the variable has x cubed. I'm going to do the inverse, which is cube root the left side, cube root the right side, and I'm going to get x equals 5, just one solution. Next one, the side with the variable has the square root of x. What is the inverse of square rooting? Squaring. So I'm going to square the left side, square the right side. X equals 100. 10 times 10, only answer we get is positive 100. One solution. Now we've got the cube root of x, okay? So the inverse of cube root is cube. I'm going to cube both sides. X equals, this means 6 times 6 times 6, 216, just the one solution. Square root of x equals 1.4. So printed on the page is square root. The inverse of square root is squaring. I'm going to square the left, square the right. X equals, and we'd have to do 1.4 times 1.4. 4 times 4 is 16. 4, 5. 4, placeholder, 1 times 4, 1 times 1. And we get 196, but we need to move our decimal point in 2 places for 1.96. Just one answer, 1.4 times 1.4. Now we've got x cubed. So on the left side, the inverse of cubed is cube root. So I'm going to cube root the left, I'm going to cube root the right. x equals -2. Because remember, -2 times -2 times -2, only way to get a -8. Cubing and cube rooting, science specific. X squared is on the left side here. So the inverse of squaring is square rooting. So if I square root the left and square root the right, I'm going to get x equals no real solution. Why? I cannot square root a negative number. 2 times 2 is 4. -2 times -2 is also 4. So this equation has no real solution. Last but not least, I have an x squared on the left. Inverse of x squared is square rooting both sides. X equals plus or minus 14. This is the one with two solutions. And why does it have two solutions? Because 14 times 14 is 196. And -14 times -14 is also positive 196. So you do have to pay attention when you are square rooting both sides. That's the potential for getting two solutions. And at the bottom of the page, friendly reminder of your perfect squares, the first 16, and perfect cubes, the first 10.